Hi there. Today we're talking about growing communication and motivation intelligence by doing a quick debrief of your talent insights or TriMetrix report. My name is Suzie Price, and I'm with Priceless Professional Development, and it is my honor and excitement to be with you today to talk through your results. It's going to give you more information about yourself and others. And by the end of our conversation here today and our review, you will be able to understand what your assessment is measuring, and you'll be ready for, if we're doing a coaching call, your very first coaching call to talk through any questions that you have. So thank you for being here, and I'm excited to be able to review this with you. And I want to make sure you have a copy of your report in front of you. And before we dive into the report, I'm going to share a few insights about performance. And there are 5 areas that impact job performance: background and experience. So where did you go to school? Where have you worked? What's your knowledge base? What are you certified in? And where do you want to go? That can impact performance. Motivation, which is something these assessments do a measurement of. Your motivation, what motivates you naturally? What are you naturally interested in, and does the job reward that? Your communication and interaction style, that is something that the Talent Insights and TriMetrix measure, which is about how you like to communicate, what's natural to you, is that a match to the job? Personal skills and acumen is something that is measured in the TriMetrix assessment, which is how do you think and make decisions. It relates to how you interact with others, and it talks about different levels of acumen around things like organization and understanding others. And then the 5th area that impacts performance is culture and team. So what is the culture you're working in, and what about the team, and how do you all work together? We use a car analogy to talk about these 5 areas, and I think it's very important to touch on each of the 5 areas because the assessments are just part of the picture. They are not telling everything about you and your experience and how you will work, but they do give some insight. So let's look at the car analogy real quick. Roads traveled is for background and experience. Motivation, you'll see gas in tank. So what puts gas in your tank? How you drive is communication style. It's what people see. Horsepower is your personal skills and acumen, and then where you're going to be parked, culture and team. So there's our car analogy outlining the 5 areas of performance. And with TriMetrix, what we're talking about is measuring these 3 areas. If your Talent Insights, it's just the first 2, but what puts gas in your tank and how you drive. And then horsepower under the hood is measured in the TriMetrix, which gives you the 3rd. It's either TriMetrix HD, which is the acumen, or TriMetrix and EQ. And so those are things you can't see. Gas and tank, people can't see it, but it does make the car go. It's why you do what you do. How you drive is very visible. People can see whether you are very fast when you drive or more low-key. Different attributes around how you like to interact and communicate is visible. And then the horsepower is not visible to others, but it helps understand some of the horsepower and helps us actually build more horsepower if the numbers aren't exactly where we want them to be. So those are the areas that are measured in TriMetrix, and again, in Talent Insights, it'll just be the first 2. And let's go into now workplace motivators, what fills your tank. And let's talk about that in the assessment. There are 6 motivators, and they are listed here: theoretical, utilitarian, aesthetic, social altruistic, individualistic, and traditional regulatory. These 6 motivators, however you scored on the assessment, the top 2 are the top that fill your tank. So they're the things according to the assessment that motivate you, cause you to want to take action, fill your gas tank. Your number 6, you're least interested in. So now what we're going to do is have you get your assessment, and you'll go to approximately page 36, and you're going to look for the workplace motivators graph so that you can look at when you answer the questions, how did the assessment say what were your top 2 motivators. And so you'll see a graph that looks like this. And what you want to do on the graph is look down at the ranking there, first, second. You see how the ranking is. That's actually my graph. So you want to look at those numbers. The blue bar, the little blue strip there, is the national mean of the hundreds of thousands of people who've taken this assessment, and it just gives you another data point to see where you landed in regard to other people. There's no right or wrong answer, and in the world of the assessment world, all the motivators are equally valuable, and they just are an indication of choices that you made when you completed the assessment that said, I prefer this over that. And so what you want to look at is, what are my top two? And if you look at my assessment, my top two are theoretical and utilitarian. And we'll talk a little bit about what each one of those measures and what that means. But basically, according to the assessment, those top two put gas in my tank. So I like to do those. I'm naturally interested in those. What are your top two? Make a note. And then go look at your number 6. So I'm most interested in the top two, and the number 6 I scored as I'm least interested in this. So when we read the description about, for me it's traditional regulatory, when we read the description about that, it could be a stressor for you. Doesn't mean you can't do whatever that indicates. It just means that it is something that you are not very interested in. It doesn't put gas in your tank. So let's go through each of the motivators, and you have a memory jogger card. There's a link beneath this video that gives you a memory jogger card that looks like this. If you're doing a class with me, I'm going to bring and give you a laminated card, but you can print out the links to get more knowledge about each one of these motivators. Motivators, again, are what puts gas in your tank. They are not visible to others. It's not about ability. It's about what interests you, and your top two are you're most interested in, and your number 6 you're least interested in. So let's go do some quick descriptors of each, and I'm going to go real quick through these so that you can actually just spend some time on your motivator memory jogger card. We've got Einstein here. He had high theoretical. He's a learner, and you might would call him an intellectual. It's a passion for knowledge and expertise. So you want to, if you landed there, read the descriptors about tendencies, things that you most want. If you're leading someone who's high theoretical, what do you want to provide? Words that work, blind spots, stressors, all of that is on the memory jogger card, so go pull that out. If you scored this as number 6, the way you would approach this, it doesn't mean you don't like to learn. According to the assessment, it's just saying you tend to seek knowledge as needed, and you don't really want to hold theoretical discussions about why something is the way it is. And so it's always interesting to know what your top motivator is and what your number 6 is, because your number 6 is somebody, if you're working with someone who's high theoretical, for example, and yours is number 6, there could be some natural tension that could result because the high theoretical does want to seek knowledge and is constantly doing that and does enjoy theoretical discussions. And if you're high theoretical, it's nice to know when you need to pull back your curiosity cat and allow those who are not as interested in why and the theoretical discussions to hold back and adapt your style or your motivator during interaction with that person to give them what they want. So let's go through the rest of them. I'll go quicker there. I was just kind of outlining each of what's on the memory jogger card. Utilitarian economic, that's Richard Branson. It's a person who is all about business. It's a passion for making money. It's a passion for return on investment. We see high utilitarian in many business people. We see it in salespeople. 82% of all top salespeople are high utilitarian. And it is a drive to be practical and resourceful. If it's your number 6, it doesn't mean you can't be practical or resourceful, because remember, motivators is not about ability. It's what puts gas in your tank. If you have utilitarian as your number 6, you would say you give freely of your time. So you're not trying to be practical and resourceful of your time. You give freely, and you don't enjoy or can find stressful the high utilitarians' continued focus on efficiency and don't like to be judged primarily on efficiency. Again, go back to your motivator memory jogger card to get all the details. Individualistic political, this is the power player. Commanding is another way to say it. This is a passion for leading, thinking outside the box. We see a lot of entrepreneurs, leaders, politicians, executives, willing to be in the spotlight, wanting to think outside the box, willing to be out front. And you see John F. Kennedy as a great example. They tend to have a lot of charisma and are just willing to strike it out and be visible. If you scored it as number 6, it doesn't put gas in your tank. Doesn't mean you can't be in the spotlight, but according to the assessment, the way you answered it is you tend to not want to work alone, and you don't want to be in the spotlight. That does not put gas in your tank. Let's go to aesthetic. That is the 4th motivator. If you scored high in this, it's about the aesthetic motivator is balance and harmony. That's Walt Disney there, someone who is has a passion for creativity and beauty, can be very aware of how harmonious things are or are not, will often pay attention to how things look and feel and enjoys doing that. If you scored number 6, it doesn't mean you cannot be creative and that you're not creative and don't like balance, but you're able to compartmentalize chaos. And you focus on function and the end result more than how something looks and feels. If it's your number 6, you're least interested. All right, let's look at social altruistic. You'll see in the assessment it often shows up as the word social, and you want to always put the word altruistic with it. That's Mother Teresa, serving others, very altruistic, wants to help others, helps others no matter who they are, and has a passion for that. And it doesn't mean, if you didn't score this as 1 or 2, it doesn't mean you don't care and have an interest in serving others. What usually you see with altruistic is they do this 7 days a week, not just at work, but they're often on nonprofit boards or helping people all weekend and through the work week. And they're just highly altruistic, and it is what puts gas in their tank. If you scored it as number 6, it does not mean that you do not care about people or that you don't want to be of service. What it does mean, though, is you tend to be a little bit more objective about service. So you tend to, if it's your number 6, you tend to help others who are already working hard, and you help them for a specific purpose. Where someone who is altruistic just is a service, a Mother Teresa. They serve, and that's what they do, and that's what puts gas in their tank. And last but not least, we've got traditional regulatory. This is the process and order keeper, someone who's very principled. They have a passion for keeping and enforcing the rules. We've got Judge Judy as an example. She's a television judge, and this is your standard operating procedure, king or queen. And it depends on how strong you scored it, but if it's in your 1 or 2, you're very good at keeping order and making sure the rules and processes are followed. You want to follow and enforce the rules, and you want to help others do that as well. If you scored it as your number 6, it means it doesn't put gas in your tank, and you tend to thrive on change and like new ideas and methods, where the high traditional regulatory might say, we need to keep the methods and ideas that we currently have because it's a tradition, it's a rule, we need to follow it. So more information on your motivators memory jogger card, but that gives you an overview of the 6 motivators. Next, I want you to go to page 33 or 34. It depends on your assessment, because everybody's assessment is individual, so the pages aren't always exact. Because sometimes you get more commentary or less commentary. I like this page. Generally, when I'm looking at motivators, I'll go look at what's 1 and 2, and then I go directly here because I want to see the intensity of your motivators. So let's tell you a little bit about what's being measured here, because the intensity will tell you a little bit about it tells you more about motivation and your own motivation and what you need, according to the assessment, to stay inspired and to want to take action. So when you look at this page, you see the blue bar. The blue bar is how 68% of the population scored. And you'll see a star, and the star is where you ranked the items. So as you were ranking, I prefer this over that. that's how you land it. So this is mine. I score theoretical extreme. So there's where the rest of the population is. There's my level of interest in gaining knowledge, research, and insight, learning. And it's not good or bad wherever you scored. It just landed where it is. There is no ideal because all of these motivators matter, and all of them were influenced by how we came in the world, what we were influenced by growing up. And what I find is most people were influenced to their motivators in one way or another growing up by influences around them. Either they had an influence of, I want to do the same, or you made a decision. It's like, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to have an anti-influence. I'm going to do it differently. So you want to look at your 1 and 2, and if you'll see my utilitarian and individualistic, which is on the right-hand side, scored pretty similarly. And then what you see on the left-hand side is for me, extreme is my number 6. You see that it's the lowest scoring one, and it's way outside of the population scores. So it's always interesting to see that. And if you see passionate, you're 1 standard deviation above the national mean. If you scored extreme, you're 3 standard deviations from the national mean, and it just means it's a stronger tendency. So anytime you have a stronger tendency, if you look at the page following the assessment results, either for anything that's extreme, indifferent, or passionate, you will get some verbiage about how that motivator may be perceived by others and how you could be misunderstood. This was a big wake-up call for me in regard to good news, understanding why I fit in sometimes and why I don't, and what the differences are, and to help me do a better job of managing that and understanding that some of my preferences are somewhat different from 68% of the population, and it's not good or bad. It's just an understanding of why things play out the way they do, and I think you might find that very helpful. So what we covered is motivators, what puts gas in your tank. There's not a right or wrong answer. It is about just self-awareness according to the assessment. If you do more of these things, your top 2, you're going to feel energized and motivated. Your gas tank is going to be full. And what I would suggest is don't take it at face value. Look at what it said were your top 2, and then notice how you feel. Watch yourself, observe yourself, see how you feel as you do those things. And it's same as with your number 6. If you're in environments that are related to your number 6, see how you feel when you are doing or in an environment that's related to your 6, and notice if it feels like it's depleting your energy. And you'll also find absence of a motivator, your number 6, there's more information in your coaching report, either with Talent Insights or TriMetrix, that talks a little bit more about motivators and one that you are least interested in, how to better relate. So it gives me insight on traditional regulatory, since that's my number 6. How do I best relate to that motivator and that type of environment? And it'll give you the same thing with whatever you scored number 6. So now let's go to the next part. We're going to go back, just a quick reminder. We're talking about what puts gas in your tank, how you drive, and horsepower, what's under the hood. And we're now going to go to how you drive. And we use a car analogy in the how you drive. And it is, again, motivators is a science that's separate from DISC. So some of the things that DISC will say will look different or sound different than what the motivators portion of the assessment says. And that's because they're 2 different sciences. The DISC science is what people see. The motivators is not visible to others. You don't know how much gas is in someone's tank. So these are quick to discover and understand. They do add awareness so you can be more effective in communication. And let's go through these now with the car analogy. We also have a DISC memory jogger card, and the link for this is right below this video where you're watching it. So grab those memory jogger cards, print them out, and again, if we're in a workshop together, you'll be getting a laminated copy. On one side lists observable behaviors, so how do you understand what you might observe or see with a style, and then tips are on the other side about how someone might be in conflict, what they most want, and some tips of things to do. So let's look at the 4 styles. It's called DISC because there are 4 styles: dominance, influence, steadiness, and compliance. And for dominance, the vehicle we use is a bulldozer. And you'll see the descriptors in your memory jogger card of how they tend to communicate. They're fast-paced, they're urgent, they can be task-oriented, and they really want to win. And here's some high D famous people. High I, all-terrain vehicle. All-terrain vehicle usually has a couple of people in it. They're having lots of fun, and they're moving quickly. So this style is fast-paced, animated, talks to think, like the D does, talks to think. However, they're more people-oriented in how they communicate and interact. Most want to talk. Here's some famous people that have this style. And you can see they're friendly, they're extroverted, lots of fun. The high steadiness, the vehicle we use to help remember with style and its tendencies, is the gondola. They're calm, they're cautious, they're agreeable, amiable. They think before they talk, and they're people-oriented. They really want everybody to get along. And if we could just keep it calm and easy without a lot of fast-paced change, it'd be a really good thing. And here are some famous high steadiness styles. Last but not least, the high compliance. The vehicle that we use for it is a train. So if you think about a train, they go to point A to point B. They have a cautious pace. They're analytical. They think before they talk, task-oriented. And what they really want are the details. Famous people, see Einstein in there again, and some TV characters and more. So now let's get your assessment out, and let's do the same thing. Let's go look at your assessment results around the DISC, and you'll go to approximately page 21, and you'll see a graph that looks like this. You want to circle the natural graph. We're going to talk about that first. And you'll see a scale of 0 to 100 on the natural graph, and you see the 50. Anything above the 50 is above the energy line, and you may have some of the descriptors on the memory jogger card, which is talking about descriptors of a high style. High meaning not better, just someone who has a tendency that's above the energy line. So what are your top 2? Maybe you have 3 above the energy line. This is my graph. You'll see high D and high I. And so I have a lot of the communication tendencies as seen in the memory jogger card. The adapted graph. Adapted graph changes every time we take the assessment. And it is, according to the assessment, a snapshot of how you're changing your style in the moment to be effective at work or attempt to be effective at work. And it just gives you some insights around how you may be changing your style and can help you know how you're changing your style. And what you want to do is notice any 10-point difference between natural and adapted. And if you look at my example, where is there a 10-point difference? I'm going down a lot of points in this assessment take on my D, see the red bar, and I'm going down more than 10 points on the green bar. So you want to note for yourself, stop the video for a second and see, where am I going up, where am I going down? More than 10 points. And then the questions that you would ask yourself is, one, it gives you some insight if you're adapting your style, and we'll just use me as an example. I was moving my D down when I took that, being less assertive and challenge-oriented, and I was moving my S down, speeding up my activity and going faster. And so it just gives you some insight on a change you're doing, so you can have some awareness of that. And then the question is, are you aware of that? And is it working? And it's adapting, and people will often say, well, I'm not adapting. Is that okay? Or, gosh, I'm adapting a lot. Is that okay? Well, the questions are, it is all okay. It's a snapshot in time for awareness. Remember, adapting your style will change, but what the assessment is saying is that you're doing that right now for work, and what you want to ask yourself is it working? I'm taking my D down. Is that working? Or is it stressful? Are you having to adapt so much that you're outside of your own comfort zone? And or could it be that a strength is revealed? You didn't realize that you are assertive or that you have a amiable, agreeable pace, and you're not using that. So those are the questions to ask and to have a conversation about. And if you're curious about that, let's talk about it on a coaching call, and we can determine what that means and if it's helping you. A lot of adapting is you're going to do a situational adapting, which is the whole reason you do the DISC assessment, in my opinion. So situationally, in an email or in a meeting, when do I need to pull my style back or pull my style up? And with awareness, we can do that. We can act more urgent or be less urgent, whatever the overextension might be. So adapting, that is about the natural and adapted graphs. There's also a wheel, a DISC wheel, that shows a visual of your natural style. The natural style is the circle, and the adapted style is the star. If there's a wide difference between your natural and your adapted, it just means there's more adapting happening. And your wheel is on about page 23. And you'll see the D, I, S, and C around the wheel. And as you notice with the graph, we're usually more than one style. And so wherever you landed is the mix of the styles. The numbers inside the wheel are nothing other than an indication for us, me. Different graphs are represented by each one of those squares. But what you want to look at is, see where you landed. The further out you are on the wheel, the stronger the tendency is. The further close in on the wheel you are, the more you have a couple of style tendencies above the energy line. So what I have found is it's easier for someone who's closer in the wheel to adapt to other styles. My style is, I can situationally adapt, and I do. It requires focus because my tendency is so strong. Neither one of them are better. There are some advantages to having a mix of styles, and there's some advantages to having a strong style tendency. You also want to look at who is across from you. So for me, who's directly across from my natural style? Well, the coordinator. So that's someone I can have great tension with because we both are very different. We go about our communication and how we like to interact differently. And then at the same time, with awareness, we can have a lot of a synergy and be a powerful team because we can balance each other out and help each other. We can both use our strengths if we're each honoring each other's strengths, and then also help each other with our blind spots. So notice that when you're looking at, if we do a team wheel, or if you're just thinking about people that you work with, and then as you look at the memory jogger card, notice the differences of the people across from each other, the D across from the S and the C across from the I, and so forth, and you will see how the strengths can balance each other out. They can also, be a stressor at first, but can be a great opportunity for synergy. All right, so we've talked about understanding the motivators assessment, what fills your tank, and how you tend to drive. Now, those come together and are combined in the Talent Insights and the TriMetrix Coaching Report with statements, and this is such a powerful tool. So it starts on about page 38. It might be page 39, but what you'll see is it's going to combine how you scored on the DISC assessment, how you scored on the motivators assessment, and give you insights into your top strengths, conflict, where you might have conflict internally or with others, ideal environment, how you like to be managed, and what can motivate you. So this is a great tool for picking a couple of items from each one of the pages to share with a colleague, with your coworker, with your manager. We use it in mentoring programs for the mentor and mentee to get to know each other, or for onboarding, for the new employee and the manager to understand each other. Great part of the assessment. Go there and look for insights. Pick your top 3 or maybe your number 1 on each page so that you can own your strengths, understand where there might be some blind spots, and just become more self-aware and then other-aware. So TriMetrix measures gas in tank, how you drive. We've covered those 2. And let's quickly touch on horsepower, or what's under the hood. It's the 3rd assessment in the TriMetrixHD or TriMetrixEQ assessment, and you're measuring personal skills, acumen, or you're measuring emotional intelligence. So it's not visible to others, but it has a great impact on the performance of the vehicle, which is you and me. So let's look at this. We're going to just touch on it when we're in a coaching call or having a discussion. We can talk more in depth. This is more personal information. Your acumen and your EQ can be changed and addressed and tweaked, just like you can tune up the horsepower of a vehicle. You can tune up your own horsepower. There's a development indicator. It's approximately in the TriMetrixHD report, page 58, and you'll see 25 personal skills. So there's a lot of other information in the assessment, that's science, but this is an insight into under the hood, what is this person's greatest capacity? And so no one ever scores all 25 as high scoring or perfect. It just isn't that way. We all have skills that we rank higher, and you want to look at your top 7 and say, are those in my job? Am I doing work related to these things? Every job requires mastery of 7 personal skills. All the personal skills are good skills to have, but what are the top 7 for the job? And that's what you want to think about. If you look at the lower scoring areas, are those areas things that are key to mastery in your job for success? And if they are, you want to go look at some of the learning bites and coaching tools we have around these areas, and so you can grow that particular skill or that capacity. So that's the acumen assessment. It's measuring how you think and make decisions, and it comes out in these 25 personal skills. The EQ assessment is measuring 5 areas of emotional intelligence, and there's a lot of detail there. And also in the EQ assessment will show how you scored via your motivators and your DISC after you see the EQ assessment. So if you took that assessment, we can review that together. Again, EQ is something we're always going to be able to build more of. Just like the acumen, we can tune the engine. And so that's approximately in the TriMetrix EQ assessment, page 45. So we've talked about each of the areas. We go in more detail in a one-on-one call around the items that are under the hood. Mark in your assessment what you agree with, what you don't agree with, and then where you have questions. And have that conversation with your coach around those items. And I would say on the things you don't agree with, feel free to mark it out if you know it's not true. If you wonder if it's true, if there's a little part of you that wonders, don't mark it out yet. Put a question mark by it. Or sometimes just changing the way it's stated, that would make it more true for you, because the assessment is a powerful tool, but it isn't all of you as how we started out today. There's so many other parts and pieces of the puzzle, the team, the culture, your background and experience, your goals. I want to tell you about some resources on our tools page. There's links below this video, as I've mentioned, with the motivators and DISC memory jogger cards. Those are little like flashcards. There's self-debriefing guides for talent insights, acumen, and EQ. So I want you to access those if you'd like. It'll give you an opportunity to read through if you're doing this more of a self-study. There's more articles, recommended reading. I do a podcast and more. You can access that. Right below the video in step 2, if your company did a benchmark, that will be posted there. You can create a development plan worksheet in step 3, so you can go and print that out and pick out the assessment you took, and then it'll print out a worksheet and give you some insight around the areas you chose to work on. And then lastly, step 4 are what we call learning bites. They're little PDFs for each of the areas measured in Talent Insights and TriMetrix that allow you to just get a better understanding of if somebody scores strong in this area, what does it look like, and there's some coaching exercises there. If we are coaching together, check out the coaching call prep form before our calls. You can use that to get your thoughts together and to allow us to better understand what you want to focus on during the coaching call. So that's our quick debrief of Talent Insights and TriMetrix. We're all about wake up eager here at Priceless Professional Development. It's the art and science of bringing the best of who you are to everything you do so you can create a rich and satisfying career and life. And that's what I want for you. We are all about here helping you get to where you want to go. And when you get to where you want to go and you're waking up eager, you naturally have the energy to help others bring out the best of who they are. So it's wonderful to be on this journey with you. Thank you for tuning in, and we look forward to talking to you.